Welcome to this podcast on CRESS, the Consistent Regular English Spelling System. This podcast is going to go over the rationale for fixing the reading and writing problem in English. It's going to ask the important questions why one might be interested in the new system that we're presenting. What exactly are the reasons? We'll get to those questions in short order. But first, let's make a fundamental contrast. Let's compare the idea of consistent and regular in CRESS with what we jokingly refer to as SSSS, which is traditional English spelling, senseless spelling, sabotaging society. The existing system of traditional English spelling makes no sense. We see painful and costly cultural nonsense. Traditional spelling is as hard to learn as anything that does not make sense. CRESS is a scientific and engineering innovation carefully designed to fix the problem. CRESS is carefully designed to be the only fully worked out and effective solution to the English reading problem, addressing it at the level of fundamentals. It provides massive benefits for foreign speakers learning English, the problem of reading and writing, but also benefits for all the children learning to read and write English that deal with unnecessary difficulties that are really large magnitude. Traditional spelling violates the concept of phonetic spelling upon which much of Western civilization, at least, is based. All of the writing systems using Roman orthography differ, of course, but most of them keep pronunciation and writing pretty well lined up. English has not done that. Traditional spelling violates the concept of phonetic spelling, and there is a cultural destruction in teaching a phonetic idea based on massive phonetic confusion. Teaching of sound letter correspondences is self-defeating by any system that confuses sound letter correspondences. CRESS has been carefully engineered for essential requirements over 20 years, considering the problem from many angles. Previous reading systems are helpful, of course, and they've been necessary given the problems of traditional writing, but they've had no choice to just be remedial and superficial. Given no alternative, they merely embed confusion and maintain it, since they have no alternative to fix the underlying problem. CRESS goes back to fundamental underlying basic science principles. A sound is a sound, and a letter is a letter, and always the twain shall meet. So let's ask some general and important questions that help us to consider whether it's really worth undertaking a transition to CRESS. How important is this? Well, here are the questions. First, we can ask, what single innovation can help both general society and disadvantaged groups the most? If you're interested in the challenges of diverse groups, you really will be interested in CRESS. Secondly, we should ask, which has always been the question, is there an alternative to SSSS to traditional spelling? Well, now there is. The answer is yes. Do we care if 25% of the population is functionally illiterate? Well, of course we do. By the way, what is meant by that is not that folks can't read and write. They can certainly read grocery labels and stop signs, etc. What we're saying is when it comes to an involved job application or a larger piece of text or reading whole books, they really struggle. Do we care if senseless spelling problems disadvantage the disadvantaged more than is necessary? What can be done? Do we care about a system that confuses itself at great economic, social, and psychological cost? Think about the impact of not being able to read as you would like, not just for foreigners, but for everyday Americans who just wish they could read a little bit better. Ask yourself, aren't there pretty obvious economic, social, and psychological costs? Also, how best to fix a cultural impedance that lowers joy and productivity for a whole society and minorities in particular? How to stop the massive waste in human potential from a system that contradicts itself? When does new technology make it the right time to disrupt the teaching of nonsense to children? What are the costs of being behind the times hundreds of years in terms of sound spelling correspondence? Much of English orthography reflects bits and pieces, details of how English used to be spelled. There are other inaccuracies as well, but that's a major source of the current problems. Has English spelling put the wonderful cultural engine of phonetic orthography in reverse gear? We can ask ourselves how and why to overcome the why nots of massive materials already available for traditional spelling. Well, here we again use language in a more or less fun way when we answer, it's about the economy, stupid. Of course, nobody is stupid. We're just borrowing a political phrase. It's about automatic computer transliteration, converting the old system to the new system or back automatically. It's about computer transliteration, stupid. Technology removes the why nots of friction in change. In other words, if you look at the problem of converting to a new spelling system and say it's overwhelming, well, perhaps you haven't looked carefully enough at what technology can do, how technology can remove the friction and facilitate this. So part of CRESS is we have already in development automatic translation, both directions, using artificial intelligence and presenting it on the internet so that it can be used by anyone interested in converting the old to the new to the old. All of this just illustrates that CRESS is about obvious, undeniable common sense. Well, part of the discussion of rationale, the subject of our podcast, is a little background about folks who might not have actually had time in their lives to stop and think about, well, what are the actual problems with current English orthography? Well, we can give a sample here, a sample of the nonsense of digraphs, silent letters, confusions, contradictions. But don't be fooled by this short list. There are tons and tons more. Dozens of other problem patterns are not illustrated here. These problems number in the thousands of words, filling many pages of issues for reading teachers. Here are some examples of problems, but please remember this is just the tip of the iceberg. The spelling R-E-A-D is pronounced two different ways. Read or read. So don't count on regular spelling. Every child receives this blow early in childhood. Also, the pronunciation read can be spelled two different ways. R-E-A-D and R-E-D. So don't count on pronunciation. You can see from these simple examples the problems go both ways. Read, read is nothing but confusion for a young child and also for foreign learners, of course. Just a few more examples. The GH in the word right is silent, but not in rough, R-U-G-H. It's silent in R-I-G-H-T, but not in R-U-G-H. So, silent things may not be silent, or they may be silent. It makes no sense. Another example, the final E in the word rate, R-A-T-E, has no sound, but makes me go back and refigure how to pronounce the A letter 2 letters back. It's not even next to it. We can satirize this by saying, why go to the gas station 2 doors down from the bakery to buy bread if there's just a sign there to go back to the bakery and use a secret knock? Again, another example. The first sound in fed, F-E-D, is the same as in phone, P-H-O-N-E, but the symbols differ. And also, why are there 2 symbols in the second one? This might discourage any child pursuing phonics. The child is no doubt looking for a world that makes sense. But the child has rained down on him or her all these little pieces of nonsense. What a way to begin education. Children in school are launched into a primary curriculum of phonics, contradiction, nonsense. By the way, here we do not blame teachers of reading or folks who have developed good reading curricula to help with this problem. There's been amazingly good work done in those areas. The issue we address is just the underlying system. And what we're really saying is perhaps linguistic science should come in to help here where it hasn't previously. Children face an introduction to education that really makes no common sense. Goals of education are thwarted when it's a difficult uphill English spelling confusion that they first confront. It takes away from the joy of learning. Less time remains for interesting learning, and a lot of time is subtracted, since so much time is spent on reading in the early grades. This friction in the learning process creates aversion. Early confusion ultimately must lower educational interest and attainment. The academic world has failed to rectify an unscientific system that confuses itself. Against this background, in CRESS, we present a scientific strategy for rational reading success, which we will detail here. Do not teach two things at once that confuse each other. English spelling confuses and impedes the phonemic awareness it is built on. Establish phonemics first, simply and completely, and consistently, with none of the confusion of English spelling. First things first. Teach children carefully engineered, simple phonemic reading and writing first, prior to standard spelling. Keep some connection to standard spelling, as will no doubt be necessary for a while, perhaps for an extended time. Use careful system design to bridge scientific truth and traditional spelling. Here's an outline of design goals for a phonemic system. Maximize similarity to English spelling. Take learners quickly to achievable mastery, first of phonemics and then traditional spelling. Clarify for students that traditional spelling is confused, not they themselves. Give children the intellectual eureka and emotional high of seeing easily for themselves the confusions in standard spelling. There are advantages to putting the phonemic spelling bridge in place first. It greatly eases traditional spelling. It shows children traditional spelling for the confusion it is. It creates much faster literacy. It offers a functional fallback and alternative. It also promotes the liberty of choice by children, parents, and educators, and the larger culture. It provides tools to translate back and forth from CRESS to traditional English spelling. We look forward to watching change over time as young people, relieved of nonsense, adapt and advance. The benefits of a new system are an educational world that makes sense, launched in rationality. Children can experience more joy, learn more, become more productive. CRESS can fix regrettable circumstances. The pain of learning something, if it depends on something that confuses the thing that you are trying to learn. The pain of learning something if the underlying principle, phonemic awareness, is confused by the thing you are trying to learn. The pain of learning anything that contradicts itself. The pain of learning something if it depends on something that is somewhere else. It makes no sense to look. Here we refer to silent E on the other side of a consonant, etc. So we had set out in CRESS to offer learnability without confusion. Teach fundamentals first, before systems that depend on them. Don't teach something based on something that makes learning it harder. Don't teach a phonics based on, don't teach A phonics based on B digraphs where B confuses A itself. Just teach one level of learning at a time, unless the second helps the first. There are obvious social and economic advantages to what CRESS sets out to accomplish. A quick, large reduction in 25% functional illiteracy. Unburdening of disadvantaged students lacking enough school hours to overcome the built-in confusion of standard English spelling. Removal of an artificial class system from American schools based on reading proficiency. Increasing the potential and productivity of American society. Psychological effects can also be expected. These will enhance the potential of American society. CRESS makes early schooling more fun and leads more quickly to advanced learning. It prevents inaccurate low esteem in students confused and stymied by an irrational, confused, trickster spelling system. It provides relief and academic advancement for the well-known category of talented learners who lack interest and ability in traditional spelling, but very serious talents elsewhere. It reduces difficulties for dyslexics, since there is less distractibility on the page. In fact, CRESS aims for quick, unconfused, less discouraging learning that leads to a love of education. All this is based on elements of science. The scientific basis means children experience the benefit of science in early grades. The basic science of linguistics and phonetics is built into CRESS. CRESS naturally bootstraps accurate understanding of the science of language and pronunciation. Learning some science based on awareness of your own use of English sounds. Learning to read, in short, can also be learning actual science. As a more advanced topic, consider linguistic design for dialect variation, part of every community. CRESS provides a basis for dialect differences, allowing adjustment to local pronunciations when desired. It pragmatically represents the general pronunciation for each sound without detailing the fine phonetics which are a distraction for the purpose of reading. Despite some phonetic generalization, it aids awareness of social variation through phonetic science while learning to read. CRESS offers positives for diversity. CRESS spelling can be flexible to vary with dialect pronunciation if desired. Scientific awareness of phonetics encourages constructive diversity in society. Minor variations in pronunciation bring out interesting and enjoyable dialect differences. How to pronounce the first syllable of Boston. The backing arrow can be added. How to compare British English. Flexibility to reflect differences by adding arrows to the letter A, the letter O, etc. How to represent dialects with O sound where others might have an ah, caught, not caught, as in C-A-U-G-H-T. So we aim for dramatic benefits for learning English as a second language also. Worldwide, billions of people are learning English. Many learn to speak with strong accents and are unable to write effectively due to the confusions of English orthography. CRESS makes both pronunciation and writing and spelling much easier. CRESS spelling is much easier. Further, CRESS software translates CRESS spelling to traditional spelling. You could write your paper in CRESS and then have it converted to traditional spelling, or the other way around. In short, we actually believe in the long run that peace and understanding are promoted by ease in learning English, which has become, through historical processes, effectively the world language. Thank you for listening to this podcast on the rationales behind the introduction of CRESS, the consistent, regular English spelling system. If you're interested in pursuing this further, go to www.disruptenglish.com, all one word, disruptenglish.com, and you'll find other podcasts and other materials that introduce the spelling system to you, that give you a description of the design that went into CRESS, that explain how teachers and educators might start to think about using it, so forth and so on. Thank you for listening. www.disruptenglish.com.